So hello and welcome back to my channel, Akasha Love. I'm Akasha Shell, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about evil. So I have noticed in the narcissism space, which is huge on YouTube, so many channels dedicated to talking about narcissism, that many times videos on these channels basically suggest that people with a narcissistic personality disorder, so that would be the mental illness of narcissistic personality disorder, are possessed by demons. And though I do understand this, the passion behind and the pain, I guess, behind such a viewpoint of people that suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, I really need to question this opinion, because I don't see it as being a helpful or beneficial opinion to hold. I don't think it's helpful or beneficial to anybody who has been in a relationship with a person they suspect to suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. And in general, I don't think it's helpful, because the implication when you have this thought is that if you are able to label this person as being demon possessed, as being evil, it's very easy then to take the step to othering this person and ostracizing them and dehumanizing them, basically, which is ironically a part of this very sad disorder, that people that suffer from full-blown narcissistic personality disorder actually dehumanize and objectify others. But if we do the same back to them by calling them evil or demon-possessed, are we not doing exactly the same thing? Are we not behaving in the same kind of narcissistic way towards them? So that's the question I want to ask in today's video. So many cultures actually do believe in exorcism, or do believe in demonic possession. Like in Bali, where I am at the moment living, they do believe that people become possessed by demons and bad spirits, and they do actually hold exorcisms to free these people of such bad spirits. And you know also probably that in the Middle Ages in Europe, it was widely held that also that people sometimes were demon possessed and needed to, the Catholic Church also carried out this practice of exorcism. And I think even in some parts of the world, the Catholic Church still does exorcisms on people. And of course, you will probably also know that many witches, women labeled as witches, who could be seen as demon-possessed, bad witches, but often these women were actually healers. Many times they were healers. They were also routinely burned at the stake during the Middle Ages, because they were seen as a threat to the population, generally also because they would have had spiritual knowledge that many of the other people would not have had. So people would have easily became fearful of such witches. So So I just wanted to look a little bit into this question of what are the characteristics of people that suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, which would see them to be labeled by others as evil or demon possessed. And I think the first characteristic here to look at is the lack of morals. So people that suffer from this disorder, which is an officially diagnosed, officially prescribed mental illness according to the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual, that is the Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, published every year in the United States and in other countries. So the first of these is a lack of morals. So people that suffer from this disorder very easily and usually will lie and cheat people, and will use manipulation tactics, so bending the truth, changing stories on the spot in order to defend themselves, or in order to stand up to some story that they've told somebody else. So there is a very distinct lack of morals, a lack of morality, so a morality vacuum. They also practice, secondly, blame shifting, victim, or otherwise known as victim shaming. So this is also projection. So instead of accepting or admitting something that they have done which has been harmful to somebody else, they will project the harmful thing that they have done straight back onto the person who has brought it up, and try and shift the blame for their harmful behavior to another person, perhaps the person that was on the receiving end of their harmful behavior. So this is also a lack of morality, because it's inability to be accountable for your own actions, and a preparedness to try and manipulate and blame shift and shame another person for actions which are actually your own. So again, a lack of morality. And also the lack of accountability, the almost impossibility to get somebody that suffers from this illness to actually accept that they did something and apologize for it and acknowledge it and fully really feel empathy for what they have done. It's almost impossible. So my understanding of this illness, and I am talking about not just people with some narcissistic traits, I'm talking about narcissistic personality disorder, is that they have replaced any kind of real spirituality, any kind of real belief in a higher, something higher than them, so belief in a God, belief in a higher consciousness, belief in a power which is behind everything. They have replaced this belief, which is present in most human societies, whether that society has an organized religion, like here in Bali, Balinese Hinduism, or in the West it has been Christianity for many hundreds of years, and now less so. But people that suffer from NPD, I think they have basically replaced spirituality, replaced the belief in God or a higher power with themselves. So they worship instead themselves. And so it's kind of a sickness of a godlessness or a lack of spirituality and a self-worship. So the self has replaced the God, and given that they are elevating themselves, there's also this sense of entitlement. There's an entitlement that they can do or say whatever they want, given that they have kind of put themselves on this pedestal. Then they really are not answerable to anybody. So if you're a God, if you put yourself in the position of a God, you can do whatever you want because you are at the top of the pile and you're not really answerable to anybody. So this is a really dangerous position to put yourself in, and it will cause a lot of conflict in your relationships. So basically the worship of me, which is the prime problem in the narcissistic personality style, me comes in to fill the vacuum where spirituality should be, where a belief in a higher self should be, where a belief in a higher being should be, where a belief in a much more deeper, more powerful consciousness should be. And this is what I see is what happens. So you could almost say that instead of being possessed by a demon or an evil spirit, they are lacking in a spiritual belief system. They are lacking in a belief in anything higher than themselves. They don't see themselves as a spiritual being having a human experience, who is divinely and infinitely connected to every other being in the universe, and whose life also is directed and mandated by a system which governs the running of the universe, which you might have your own view of, and every culture has its own perspective on what their spirituality is, what their spiritual beliefs are. But in general, the belief is that God is love, God is forgiving, God is merciful, God is beyond humans in that God sees all of the painful things that humans do, and God sees this and in the Christian tradition, for example, forgives them for their sins, because recognizes that they are not gods, they are humans, and therefore they will make mistakes all the time. So I see a really core problem in the narcissistic personality disorder being this worship of the self, and the self having come into this vacuum where a spiritual belief should exist. So I also see a part of the solution to this really big problem is inviting these people that suffer from this illness, to inviting them to investigate a spiritual practice and to take on a spiritual practice, whether that be Christianity, whether that be Buddhism, whether that be Hinduism, whatever, whether that be Islam. It doesn't have to be a religion, but I think that one of the key parts of recovery from this very, very damaging mental illness is to invite these people that suffer from NPD into spiritual teaching. And me personally, I have, although I don't label myself as a Buddhist, I have learned a lot from Buddhism, and I do practice Buddhism according to the principles of Dharma. And Dharma is the teachings, is the name for the teachings of the Buddha, Buddha Dharma. So Dharma in the Pali or Sanskrit word means the truth. So the Buddha Dharma is a teaching of the truth. And one of the fundamental and core teachings of Buddha Dharma is that there actually is no self. And this, of course, is debatable, and every different spiritual tradition and psychological framework also has its own perspective on what is the self. But in Buddha Dharma, the self is seen to be the cause of all of the problems that humans face. and it also is seen as an illusion. So one of the standard phrases that you will hear in many Buddhist monasteries or Buddhist teaching places